Hi, this is Mr. Merrill, and this is the guide for the video analysis. So I just opened up Logger Pro here. I'm going to go ahead and delete these graphs. Alright, so you should have already downloaded the two files on Moodle. So you can go to Insert, Movie. It should be under your Downloads folder. We'll just go ahead and start with the slow launch. Okay, so hit this video analysis button down here on the right. Delete the graph that pops up. We've got to walk through a couple things. The first is to set a scale. If you can't tell, this thing taped in the top middle above the projector is a meter stick, so that's 1 meter. Those units are fine. The next thing we'll do is set an origin. So that's that third button down. We'll go ahead and start it where the ball is now, and just to make it easy to locate the point every time, I'm going to start at the bottom center of the ball. You don't have to, but it's easy to see in every frame. Next thing we're going to do is double click the center. Make sure we change this to a 3 and this first point to 0, and again I got to this screen by just double clicking the center of the frame itself. Okay, so now we can begin to add points. Go to the add point button, second down. And I'm not going to do it as perfectly as you should. You should try to get right on the bottom center every single time if you want your data to come out nicely. For the sake of time, I'm doing it with a little less care. Okay, and then we run out of video there. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is go to Page, Add Page, Insert, Table, and like I said, you've got to delete these guys here because they're not accurate. And we have to make several calculated columns. So we're going to go to Data, New Calculated Column, and the first thing we'll do is make a mid-time column. Remember, we can't find the instantaneous velocities directly, but we can find the instantaneous velocities at mid-time by finding the average velocities over an interval. So this will be mid-time, T-mid, S, and then we'll write a simple function here. So we'll take, so we'll do time minus change in time, or delta, time divided by 2. So this should calculate us a mid-time column. Okay, and then we want instantaneous velocities to correspond to that mid-time column. So we'll go to Data, New Calculated Column, and we're going to do one for the x velocities. So x velocity, and we'll just say Vx, meters per second. And we'll do delta x divided by delta t. This is basically an average velocity, but like we said in the past, an average velocity is the same as instantaneous at the mid-time if we're talking about a linear or quadratic function. So we'll hit done. Just one last one. Do the same exact thing, except this will be y velocity. This will be Vy. Delta y divided by delta t time, sorry. So you can either type it out or just select the columns from the second function here. Click OK, and that's everything we need from the first video analysis. So to get the second one going, we're going to go to Page, Add Page, Okay, and then we'll insert another movie. So we did the slow one. Let's do the fast one. Again, should be under your downloads. I'm going to walk the same exact procedure, so I'm going to do that quickly first. Okay, so do the bottom right there. We just set a scale. Okay. And again, I'm going to be a little bit sloppy about this. You should take your time, make sure to get it right. Okay, so that's great. We'll go to Add Page, Insert Table. Okay, now if you extend it, you'll see this is all the stuff we created before, and now it automatically created a new one for our second video analysis. We still don't need this, so we'll go ahead and delete that. And we're going to go to New Calculated Column, make sure to click that. And unclicking this should prevent it from showing up in both video analysis. If it does show up a second time, we'll go ahead and delete it. Not really sure why that is. I think it's just a bug. So we'll call this velocity 2. Call this Vx2 meters per second. Function delta x divided by delta time. Okay, we'll go ahead and click done. Okay, good. So mine didn't show up in the first video analysis. Notice that the new column just showed up here. If you had one also show up there, even after unclicking that box, it's just a bug. Just click on it and delete it, and it won't affect anything. Okay, and then we'll go to just one more. Data, new calculated column. This one we'll call y velocity 2. Vy2. And still meters per second. I'll make sure this is video analysis 2. Unclick. Delta y delta time. Okay, and then click done. Okay, because of the length of the video, we don't have the same number of points in each thing. That's okay, don't worry about it. Alright, so we got all our data. Now we just need to make some graphs. I will go ahead and make every single graph, so if you want to stick around and watch that, that's fine. If you just want to make sure yours are correct, then skip ahead in the video. So I'm going to go to Page, Add Page. Alright, I list the graphs here. So we'll start out by making the y versus time graph. So I'm going to go to Insert, Graph. Don't want the default. So I'm going to click More. Oops. So we'll call this y versus time. This is really y position versus time. And I want to have both positions, or y positions clicked. So we'll do like that. And then when we click done, we should see two of them like that. I don't really like this scaling that it did automatically. If you click your points very correctly, these will be almost identically overlapped. You can see because I rushed mine that they're not. But let's go ahead and change this scaling to say -3 should look okay. And we can change this to manual. Okay, that looks a little bit better. So this y versus time, because they're both experience the same acceleration, they should experience this relatively the same positions. The closer these are to overlapping, the better the job you've done on clicking the points. Okay, so that's the first one. We're going to go to Insert, Page, Add Page. Next one we'll make is X versus time, so Insert Graph. Very similar setup. We'll call this X versus time. Click this, unclick whatever's default. Click this, we'll see what it auto scales the axes to. That's no good. You can see it got cut off because the the X positions are positive. So let's change this. I think 6 should work. A little too big, so we'll change that to, how about 4? Yeah, 4 should be perfect. Okay, so we got that graph here. Should make sense. We have a larger velocity for the second video there, so it has a greater slope. We'll go to Page, Add Page. The next one is X velocity versus time. So we'll go to Add Graph. Double click on that. So we want the X velocities. Now, with these velocities, remember these velocities don't correspond to the time, because these velocities are calculated at mid-time. So I need to change this from time to mid-time. All right, and these, I can already tell you, are going to be positive because the slopes of those lines are positive. So we'll go ahead and change that to something like 6. And hopefully that will be fine. Okay, good. And notice these are roughly constant, which is what we expect. Okay. And I forgot to add a title to this, so we'll call this X velocity versus time. Okay, so hopefully that looks good to you. Uh-oh. Got this graph scaling backwards. This should be from 0 to 6, not 6 to 0. That looks better. Let's see if I made that same mistake on the last one. No. Okay, so that looks better. So Page, Add Page. Okay. Graph. I think we're on the Y velocity. Yep, right here. So double click on that. So we'll call this Y velocity versus time. Again, because the velocities are calculated at mid-times, we'll also have to change the scaling on the x-axis and not just the y-axis. So once I get done here, I'm going to go down here and change this to mid-time. Now these will be negative, so let's see how the scaling works out. That looks good. And again, if you did this perfectly, these would overlap. Just like the position graphs, they have no difference in their y movement as they're falling. Okay, so that looks good. I won't change that at all. I think the next one is the position one. So we'll go to Insert, or sorry, Page, Add Page. Insert graph. And this one's kind of the funky one, so we're going to unclick this, and we'll start out by doing a slow one, so we'll do Y there, and then for this, we're going to do this X. Okay. So, the one thing that I want to do is I want both graphs to have the same scaling, so I'm going to fix that in a second, but first let's do, this would be Y versus X. So the Y position versus the X position. Okay, so we did 0 there, and that goes down to, I think this is getting cut off a little bit, so we'll extend that to say there. Okay, so you can tell our scaling's a little bit off. Let's have this, and instead of going all the way down to -7, let's have this go to -3. So keep these numbers in mind because we want to have the same scaling for the next time. This 1.3 is fine for this one, but because I know that the next one's going to be a little bit bigger, it's going to go farther in the X position than this one, I'm going to go ahead and change this to, let's say 3. We might have to come back and play with that. This one's kind of a tricky graph. So I'll also call this Y versus X. Slow launch for the title. Okay. So interesting shape. We'll talk about that in a second. So we'll go to page, add page. And if you don't want to do it on a separate page, I probably would for printing, but I'll go ahead and do it on the same page here just so we can compare. Probably would make more sense than flipping back and forth a bunch of times. So basically I'm doing the same thing I just did, except I'm doing it with the second video analysis. So I'm going to pick the Y's here and the X's here, and I want to have the same exact scaling. So this one goes to 3. I want to make this one go to 3. This one goes to -3. So for the graph I'm just making, I want to have the same scaling as this last graph. And then I'll call this Y versus X fast launch or something like that. Okay. And even that gets a little bit cut off, so let's even go change this more. Maybe 5 would be a better number. That's probably more than we need. So how about 4? Okay. And I want these to have the same scaling, so I'll go back here and change this to 4 as well. So there's no way, the only reason I'm doing this is because I can't, there's no option in Logger Pro to have them on the same graph, but I want it to be as if they were on the same graph. So I want them to have the same exact scaling. Now, if you haven't noticed already, what is this showing? Well, this is showing the Y versus X position. This is essentially showing the trajectory. If you go back and watch the videos, the slow launch follows this trajectory, where the fast launch follows this trajectory. So I thought that would be interesting to see. So I'm just going to go back through all the graphs so you can check to make sure yours look like mine, and I'll also be checking mine for any mistakes. So again, the more overlap these are, the better you did at adding the points. These look fine. Again, the straighter these are, the better you did at adding the points. These look fine. The more overlapped these are, the better you did at adding the points. And if you want to adjust the scale or anything like that for printing, that's fine. Okay, but that's essentially all you have to do.